To all those people arguing out there what the shoe of the year was for 2020, whether that be the Off-White Jordan 4s, Sacai Vapor Waffles, or even the Yeezy Foam Runners, look. I'll show you what the shoe of the year is for 2020. And it's this. No, this is not a joke. What's good, everyone on YouTube? It's me again, back with another video, and today we have a pretty special shoe because today we're looking at what I consider to be the best shoe of 2020. And no, this is not a joke. And this shoe was first leaked all the way back in, I think, like March or February at that Nike event where they showed a bunch of like collaborations. I think you also saw like the ambush dunks for the first time there. And when this shoe was first revealed, it got a lot of hate, a lot of negative attention, but for some reason I was just instantly drawn to the shape of it. And if you don't believe me, if you go back to my Nike MMW TR3 review of the camo pair, I mentioned that this is a shoe I'm very excited for. And a solid like 8 months later, or was it 10 months later, the shoe finally comes out in December. And for those who don't know, this is a shoe done by Nike in collaboration with Matthew M. Williams, who is, I guess, the CEO or like the owner of Aleeks, and currently now the creative director of Givenchy. So quite the portfolio under him. And for this shoe, he even mentioned himself that this was inspired by a snowmobile, which explains a lot. But this shoe is just absolutely wild, and we're just gonna get straight into it. So today I'll be talking to you about the Nike Zoom MMW 4 in, I guess, the stone grey colorway. Let's go with that. So, with the intro out of the way, let's get into the box. So for this collaboration, we just get the pretty standard sort of like black Nike Lab box. Similar to the last few pairs of the TR3s and those like other shoes. But then on the side, I don't know if it's going to be able to be shown, we've got gloss MMW and a Nike tick on it to give it some slight collaboration branding. And then opening the box, we get that same sort of black MMW paper with that paragraph again that reads, "We train with patience. Training is incremental improvements. It is a ritual of solidarity and self-discipline." I read that really fast because I've read this so many times now. This is the third time I've read it. And then underneath we've got standard packing paper. And then the shoes and stuff were pretty standard sort of wrapping paper. And then these cardboard shoe trees with little bits of cardboard on the ends of it. I don't know if people care much about what goes inside the shoe, but if we pull out the last thing at the bottom of the box, we actually get this really nice tote bag. And this is actually one of the things I've always liked about the MMW collaborations. Their tote bags are always really nice. So we've got this MMW and Nike branding on the front, and then MMW Training Series 4 with some other numbers. And it's pretty nice. It's not a tote bag actually, it's more of a gym bag, but I always like that they've included it in the package. I'm not going to bother wrapping up this paper. And if we move to the label, it reads Nike Zoom MMW 4. So the retail price on these. The retail price on these in Australia was actually very decent. It retailed for a price of $520. Now I know that sounds pretty crazy, but considering if we looked at like the US retail, which was like $450, and Aleeks was selling this for €450. 520 AUD is pretty good. I'll put the conversion here. And yeah, honestly, $520 was probably the cheapest I was ever going to get this shoe. So I guess we're just going to have to live with it. And with the box out of the way, let's get into the shoes. And here we are. Jeez. The Nike Zoom MMW 4 in the stone grey colorway. So just by looking at the shoe initially, the angles and the proportions are absolutely insane. So I guess we'll just start from the top and go down to the bottom. So starting with the upper, it's this really porous and quite stiff open sort of weaved mesh. And around sort of like the side panels of the shoe, it's really sort of breathable, and you can see right through the shoe. And it also, when you're wearing socks, you'll be able to see the color of socks you're wearing. So typically I'd probably say black socks would probably be the best option of this. And on top of this sort of like mesh slash like knit, we've got a lot of like fused panels. On the toe box, we've got this triangular shape with a few additional fused panels for the laces, and then a few fused panels on the side. And then on the outside of the shoe, we've actually got this sort of metallic plastic, I guess, ring piece. I don't know if ring piece is the correct term. And then inside that, we've actually got this sort of grid mesh overlaid on top of the Nike swoosh. So pretty strange paddling, pretty weird. And then on the instep, actually, we've just got a pretty regular, larger Nike swoosh. Then if we move to the tongue is really sort of flimsy. It's just got this felt material on the edges, and we've got Matthew M. Williams written on the middle piece. And then the laces themselves are this, it seems typical at this point, the sort of like thin wire laces that sort of like feel kind of uncomfortable against your foot, but that's okay. And then on the back of the heel, we've got MMW branding, as well as this plastic heel clip that's supposed to give you a little bit of extra support. And then, honestly, that pretty much finishes the upper, but moving down to the midsole is where all the action is on this shoe. And I don't even know if you call it a midsole at this point. It's this weird sort of setup. So the midsole is this super angular foam, or at least that starts off with this super angular foam. But then it reaches this sort of like metallic silver, I think carbon plate. I'm not sure if it's actually carbon fiber or just some sort of plastic. And then this carbon plate is hollow at the back. And then at the front, we've actually got two massive Zoom AirPods. And this seems like a MMW version of like the Nike ISPA Road Warrior, which honestly, all those shoes are sort of inspired by the Vaporfly Next Percents, which then also the Zoom, the Zoom types also had this double Zoom setup at the front. So there are a lot of shoes that seem to be pulling from the same sort of design book. And then one thing I forgot to mention about the upper actually is at the toe box, there's this angular sort of piece of plastic that sort of squares off the toe. So it sort of matches, I guess, the back of the shoe. So you can't look like you're wearing a toaster on your foot. And then moving to the outsole is, in terms of like the actual traction itself, is a pretty standard waffle grid traction. But in terms of the shape, it's absolutely insane. It's super angular, and it actually sort of wraps up and like tucks in behind the foam here. And it sweeps up really viciously at the toe. And actually, when I look at the bottom of this shoe, it somewhat reminds me of the Rick Owens Tech Runner. I'll flash a photo of the outsole of that shoe, but you can sort of see the super angular design in that shoe as well. So that covers the main features of this particular shoe. I know there's a lot to cover, but I don't want this review to be too long. In terms of sizing, I actually found that this shoe seems to fit quite big. So I didn't have a chance to buy these in my true to size 9.5, but I risked it and went down a half size to a size 9. And because of how thin the mesh is, the shoe actually fits pretty well in a size 9. I will say it does fit on the snugger side, so I would probably say if you like a more regular fitting shoe, I'd probably just recommend sticking true to size. So if you prefer a snug fit and don't really want to have too much extra space in the toe, definitely go down half a size in this shoe. So I am usually a 9.5 in most of my sneakers. I bought these in a US 9 and they fit me pretty well. Now, in terms of comfort, the comfort on this shoe is actually pretty insane. When walking around in this shoe, it feels super dynamic and super bouncy. This really strong sweep at the front gives it a nice rocking motion, and when you run, you can feel the Zoom AirPods really sort of like compressing. But the heel was the most surprising thing. I really thought that this plastic would be quite stiff, but it's actually really flexible and it compresses very nicely when you're stepping on it. I will say it has this sort of weird issue of when you're standing, the heel actually drops further than the rest of the shoe, so your foot kind of feels like it's doing this. And that feels a bit odd, but when you're walking around, you don't notice it. the upper itself, the upper is super minimal and it makes it extremely breathable and it just sort of wraps around your foot quite nicely. I will say the wire laces, as mentioned before, is a little bit uncomfortable against your foot, but aside from that, this shoe overall, for how absurd it actually looks, is actually incredibly comfortable. Now I'm getting to the part of the video where I talk about my opinions of this shoe, and to be honest, it's very obvious. I honestly think this is the shoe of 2020. I just think it's just it's so out there, it's so different, it's so unique, and it's really sort of pushing what footwear can be. I know the Road Warrior also did it, and in some ways the Road Warrior is probably a little more crazy with the tabby toe, but I honestly couldn't really get behind the tabby toe. But I really did like the Road Warrior's midsole sort of setup. I've just really been enjoying this kind of like floating kind of like empty space and these zoom pods. So when the MMW 4 first leaked, honestly, I was pretty much in love with it as soon as I saw it, and I saw a lot of people hating on the shoe, but yet when the release came around for this shoe, everyone seemed to be going for it, probably just because of the people trying to resell this shoe. But I also think because of the fact that it's been like leaked for so long, I think just it's given enough time for people to actually come around to the design. And to be honest, I know it's not for everyone, and I definitely am ready for people to not agree with me for this shoe being any good. But it's just something I really like. It's just crazy, it's out there. You're never gonna see anyone wearing this, which is always a plus. I don't particularly like having the same shoe as everyone else out there. And honestly, I know some people would say comfort's not a big factor, but the comfort on this shoe is actually really insane. So overall, as I state once again, this is the best shoe of 2020, and yeah, we're not going to debate any more about it. So with that, we come to the end of another video. So I'd love to hear what you guys think of the Nike Zoom MMW 4 in the stone grey colorway. And since I've been mentioning sneaker of the year so much, what is your sneaker for 2020? So if I had to list another, I guess, mention in terms of 2020, the Code JP Jordan 1s honestly would be like number 2 for me. But I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. So like, comment, subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section down below. And if you're into more sneakers, dance, vlogs, that sort of thing, consider subscribing to the channel. Time for the On Feet, and I'll catch you guys in another video.